The Inventor of the Year Award recognizes the most outstanding recent inventors and seeks to increase public awareness about the impact inventors make on our quality of life. It fosters the spirit of innovation and highlights the protection offered to inventors by the patent system. This year's award is sponsored by Aiken, Gump, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld. Thank you for your generous support. IPO Education Foundation programs would not be possible without the support of our sponsors and individual donors. With your support, we can continue to put on programs and reach more people to educate about the importance of innovation and creation by, within, and for underrepresented communities. Please consider making a donation by selecting the Donate Now button on the website. We greatly appreciate your support. I'd now like to introduce Steve Mezlowski, a partner in Aiken Gump's Philadelphia office, who will present this year's award on behalf of the IPO Education Foundation.
Thank you, Manny. Aiken Gump has been a longtime supporter of IPO Education Foundation and its mission to promote an understanding of and respect for intellectual property and its value to society. We look forward to continuing to collaborate and work together to increase awareness about IP, particularly in diverse communities. This is an essential effort for our industry that will pay dividends for all in the future. And now it is my honor to present this year's Inventor of the Year Award on behalf of the Education Foundation. The Inventor of the Year Award recognizes the most outstanding inventors and seeks to increase public awareness about the impact inventors make on our quality of life. It fosters the spirit of innovation and highlights the protection offered to inventors by the patent system. This year's award goes to 4 individuals whose achievements have truly impacted the world over the past year. IPO Education Foundation is pleased to recognize Katalin Kariko, Ugur Sahin, Ozlem Tureci, and Drew Weissman as the 2021 Inventors of the Year for their contributions in the development of mRNA technology used in COVID-19 vaccines. Messenger RNA, also known as mRNA, vaccines are created in a laboratory and teach our cells how to make a protein that will trigger an immune response. That immune response, which produces antibodies, is what protects us from getting infected if the real virus enters our bodies. When the COVID-19 pandemic shook the world in 2020, these scientists moved quickly to innovate, developing a vaccine using mRNA technology. The Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine became the first to be approved by the US Food and Drug Administration and has been administered to hundreds of millions of people, an amazing feat that has unquestionably saved millions of lives. To learn more about the BioNTech and University of Pennsylvania team and their significant contributions in saving lives during the pandemic, let's watch this short video that IPO Education Foundation has put together.
Hi, I'm Ugur Sahin. I'm trained physician scientist and innovator, focus on immunotherapies and mRNA therapeutics.
My name is Ozlem Tureci. I'm the co-founder and chief medical officer of BioNTech. I'm also a professor at the Johannes Gutenberg University here in Mainz in Germany, and the president of the Association for Cancer Immunotherapy, which is called KIMT.
My name is Katalin Kariko. I am Senior Vice President at BioNTech SE. I am also adjunct professor at Neurosurgery, Perelman School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania.
Drew Weissman. I'm the Roberts Family Professor of Vaccine Research at the University of Pennsylvania.
We knew immediately that this is very important and it will make the mRNA applicable for medicinal use, human use, and we have a very important molecule to work with.
I think what people need to realize is that it didn't happen in 10 months. You know, they saw the vaccine develop in 10 months, but that was 25 years of work on our part and many more years on the part of a lot of other people.
Everything was about optimizing mRNA for vaccination, and all the different layers which we have improved indeed resulted in what we have nowadays in our hands. For the COVID-19 vaccine, for example, we only need 30 microgram per dosing, which means that all that efforts to optimize mRNA were worthwhile.
Both groups came up with different type of innovations. And just by combining these innovations, we got something which is even more powerful than what the both groups developed alone. But we share the same passion, yeah? We share the same values, and we share the same type of working together. Yeah? And this is a good example of scientists who, if they combine their ideas, could end up with something great.
I think what was important about that is I was with Katie, and the two of us had spent 23, 24 years working on RNA, and to finally see a drug that we helped develop put into my arm and put into her arm was a great experience.
On behalf of IPO Education Foundation, congratulations to Drs. Kariko, Sahin, Tureci, and Weissman for this well-deserved award. We thank you for your contributions that have made it possible for all of us watching today to be able to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And now, Eric Aronson, member of the IPO Education Foundation's Board of Directors, will lead a discussion with the award winners about the importance of innovation and the hopes for mRNA technology to positively impact society, even beyond combating the worldwide pandemic.
Congratulations to our honorees on receiving the IPO Education Foundation Inventor of the Year Award. This year, with everything that is going on around the world, I couldn't think of 4 more deserving inventors. So thank you for joining us today to talk about how you each contributed to the development of mRNA technology used in some of the approved COVID-19 vaccines. As we sit here today, we see what a great success this technology has been and how it's changing the world. And so I'd like to start our conversation by asking each of our panelists to discuss what the past 1 to 2 years has been like, to see your hard work so widely accepted and to have such an impact across the globe. Let's start with Kate.
Oh, hi. So that was a year we will remember forever, of course, all of us, because it was very unusual, and spending the whole 1.5 years, 2 years in home office, and meanwhile trying to do our best. And of course, the end is very important, that we are all happy that the vaccine we together all created and with many other colleagues was so potent.
Thank you, Kate. What about you, Ugur? What's it been like to see something you helped develop have such an enormous global impact?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It's indeed it feels like a huge privilege. Yeah, and I am extremely grateful that we were in the right position, prepared at the right time, and could execute, yeah, and come up with a solution for this pandemic, which helps so many people. And of course, being prepared meant that we all had spent decades of work on this technology, which allowed us to respond so quickly.
Thank you. Drew, what's the past 2 years been like for you?
It's really been unbelievable. You know, I think back nearly 25 years ago when Katie and I first started working on mRNA, and we knew back then that it had great potential, that it had could be used in many different diseases. But I would have never imagined a pandemic and 1 billion doses of vaccine being given out and helping to stop the pandemic. Those are just unbelievable things. But it's not just me. It's the thousands and thousands of scientists that have been involved in the development of RNA, LNPs, RNA therapeutics, vaccines, and everything else that went into this.
True. And Ozlem, your thoughts?
I can only second, Eric, what has been already said by my colleagues. I believe that the most noble purpose of science is to serve mankind, and Ugo and I have been wanderers between worlds as physicians, scientists, and company founders to contribute to this purpose. And it is really humbling that this was achieved in the context of this pandemics. It is obviously not the achievement of a couple of individuals. It's the many generations of scientists and researchers who have contributed. All the bits and pieces which tied together allowed us to respond to this pandemic.
Several of you have mentioned the journey, the decades-long journey that you've been on. Drew, can you talk a little bit about that early mRNA research?
In the beginning, it was Katie and I, and that was it. The world, for the most part, wasn't interested in RNA. They weren't interested in grants and papers. And it was Katie and I working at the bench together. And we did that for many, many years. So, in the beginning, I would go to meetings and I would talk to scientists, and they would smile and they would say, that's very nice, but I could see that they had no interest in RNA. So it's been just an amazing turnaround that now the whole world is interested in RNA. And it feels great.
Kate, did you have a similar or different experience?
I started to work with RNA a decade before Drew came to Penn, and my goal was always to develop messenger RNA for therapy. And of course, not for vaccine, but eventually the vaccine success, I am sure, will help also the developing mRNA for therapeutic purposes. And so that's, I am very hopeful on that. And yes, other colleagues might not believe much, but we could see the progress we made, and so we stick with it.
Ozlem, we often hear and we know that the process of science is iterative. Can you talk a little bit about the movement and the advancement from the mRNA technology from the bench into patients?
Yes, indeed. Science is always iterative, and it has several layers which develop in parallel. One layer is to understand the problem, and not only of the technology, also of the purpose for which you want to use the technology. Ugo and I, in the 1990s, were primarily interested in using mRNA for cancer immunotherapy, specifically for cancer vaccinations, as cancer vaccines. And that meant that on the one hand, it was about addressing the technological challenges of mRNA. One of those was the short half-life and low translation efficiency, which we tackled and addressed with several design elements which were complementary to those developed by Drew and Kate. On the other hand, it was about understanding immunology and how mRNA acts in the context of the immune system. And we were lucky that these were the times where revolutions basically happened in immunology, which allowed us as a community to understand what we need and what we have to engineer into our mRNA. This, for example, included that we understood as a scientific community that we have to bring mRNA into dendritic cells in lymph nodes, which is a very specialized place and cell type in the body. So that this, as a new iteration, after having solved the instability problem, brought in a new challenge, namely to get this type of targeted delivery, not only in mice, also in humans. So this is one example. And the more you learn, the better you can describe the problem, the challenge the technology has to address. And that again feeds into a new cycle of improvements of the technology.
Ugur, I want to delve into a little bit more of the scientific community aspect and bring in the interplay between the scientific community and intellectual property rights, and how the role that IP plays in promoting knowledge sharing and collaborating within this community. So can you elaborate a bit on how you view the importance of IP rights in this process within the scientific community?
So Eric, if you just want to do research, you don't need any IP. You can just do research and that's fine. But if you are really interested, like Ozlem and I was, in developing treatments, it is very clear that development of a novel therapeutic requires, and based on a new technology, requires at least 1 billion investment. So there is no example for a new technology, which was developed to a drug which required less than 1 billion. So the question is why people should invest, to develop something, and the only way to do that is to generate patents. And patents, the key rule of patents is not, they are not prohibiting something. The key rule is they are enabling something. They are enabling that a company could be started. So when we started our company in 2006, 2008, based on already on 10 years of academic research, we had patents at the university, which were brought into the company, and investors were seeing that they are patents, and they financed the company. So this was the starting point. So the first enabling aspect is starting a company with patents. Then now, 13 years later, after having developed, or 12 years later, when we asked our partners, Pfizer, to join the collaboration, it was clear that the project of developing a COVID vaccine will take $1 billion in investment. Another $1 billion. So the reason why they joined is because we had a huge patent portfolio. In the meantime, not only the university patents, but hundreds of patents. And now, when we now see that we want to distribute the vaccine worldwide and enable others and want and engage others, they will also ask, why should they invest into manufacturing capacities? What kind of guarantee they have to do the next step? So patents are enablers of collaborations, enablers of investment, and enablers of dissemination of knowledge. And of course you can avoid in maximizing commercial aspects, but at the end of the day, if you really want to have engagement of commercial institutions, then you need patents.
Drew, anything to add from the academic perspective?
I completely agree. And what a lot of people don't understand is that they think patents are built to stop use of drugs. and to limit it to a single company. But as Ugur said, development, distribution, all require a certain amount of rights. And without those patents, drug companies wouldn't develop new drugs. There would be no reason to, because their neighbor could steal them and make them, and the money would be wasted. So I think people that say, oh, we should wipe out all the patents, don't understand how the system works.
So not one to rest on our laurels, let's look into the future a bit, right? What's next? So Ugur, excuse me, how do you envision technology advancing over the next 10 to 20 years? And can you tell us a little bit more about the future of mRNA technology and the research that's being conducted into potential treatments for cancer and malaria and TB and HIV?
Yeah, so first of all, so the development of the vaccine was of course validating a new technology platform, and this technology platform in the many years not come up only with one flavor, but it's a toolbox of different technologies. There's not a single mRNA technology. There are different mRNA formats. That's the pseudouridine modified mRNA that Katie and Drew identified. There's the uridine mRNA format. There is the self-amplifying mRNA format, the trans-amplifying format that we have identified, and then there are multitude of delivery tools. Yeah, and there are circulatory mRNA, and this different type of mRNAs will enable different type of developments, drug developments. Yeah, for example, for vaccines. So the vaccine field have been now validated, and we will see in the next 5 years multiple mRNA vaccines being approved. We will see in the cancer immunotherapy field, yeah, products proven for efficacy. We have already seen 5 years ago multiple applications in the preclinical setting for using mRNA for regenerative medicine, for autoimmunity, for allergies, so a multitude applications are in the preclinical setting, and many of them are now in the clinical setting, and we have to see whether they are validated as product candidates. So we envision transformation in the medicine, like we saw this transformation with the introduction of the recombinant protein technologies. This was 40 years ago. This is the next big transformational step in medicine with the entry of mRNA therapies.
Kate, is this what you envisioned when you first started your research into mRNA?
So at the beginning, when I was doing, everybody was complaining about the short half-life of the protein, and because everybody was focusing on gene therapy. And I can tell you that it seems now that even the future, so the promise of gene therapy will be fulfilled by mRNA. As you might aware, the Intellia was already using the Cas9 mRNA coded Cas9 and delivered to patients, and could treat them with making this toxic protein, so that even the gene therapy field will be moved forward with the messenger RNA. And of course, all of the mRNA, which makes therapeutic protein, we already using here in BioNTech for oncology purposes, mRNA coding for cytokines. We injected in tumors, and it is already in clinical trial to make the cold tumor hot. So that's also an application. And so there are more will be, and we have the mRNA therapy meeting next month. And if you would attend in the last 9 years, you would know that different part of the world, RNA companies exist, and they are doing a different kind of application. Many of them is specializing for formulation, others is a certain therapy is their interest, and so there is more will come.
Well, we know that the patients are out there waiting, so we look forward to seeing what's next. So I have one final question for each of you. The IPO Education Foundation's mission is around promoting innovation among underrepresented communities. Do you have any advice for those students tuning in today who are hoping to make an impact in science? Ozlem?
My advice is actually what is engraved here on my medallion, which is 2 words, the title of Angela Duckworth's book, Grow Grit. I think for a scientist, it's this special blend of passion, perseverance, even if you face adversity. In particular, if you want to translate science to something bigger, survival, health for humanity is very important.
Well said. Drew?
I mean, outreach to all youngsters, all students, to interest them in science is something that I and all of us do all the time. And I think that what's necessary is for people to understand that science can be a wonderful thing, and getting involved with it will change your life. And if it's something that makes you happy, people need to be encouraged to do that.
Kate?
Yeah, I want to tell them that they have to believe in themselves, and even if their background is not what they maybe wish for, I can tell you that all of us here, we came with very humble background, and our parents were not scientists, and so they can be anything they want to, work hard for it, and they have to enjoy science. Maybe it's not for everybody, but enjoying that, you know, when they have a failure, they have to take as a positive way and encourage them to get solution, and they have to enjoy solving problems and having fun, because this is fun to be a scientist.
And final thoughts, Ugur?
Yeah, just it's the same like my colleagues. I think a great scientist enjoys the everyday work, yeah, and goes to the lab because he's curious and he wants to see what the experimental results are, and if the experimental results are fine, then he or she is happy, and if not, he or she has a learning, and this is the fun part. And the useful part is really thinking about what could be done with what I'm going to achieve, and how could this be useful. And if you can connect both, then you have a long-term vision, yeah, and everyday motivation to work. And as Drew said, this makes us all happy, yeah. Being on the one side, dealing with curiosity of the daily work, and on the other side, understanding that we are doing something useful.
Well, let me join the very long line of people that have thanked you for your contributions to the world, personally, to each and of us individually. It's been an absolute honor to speak with you. And once again, congratulations on being named IPO's 2021 Inventors of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.